Okay, so I'm going to knock your socks off today. Let's take a look over here. We're in the Lot runs away. Now, first of all, Torah Anytime people and anybody, if anybody's watching on Torah Anytime and on YouTube. So I will be away. I'm going to be in the United States for I'm leaving tomorrow, so I won't be back until I'll be giving shir again 2 weeks from today. I'll be back for the Parsha shir 2 weeks from today for Wednesday, which is Parsha's, where are we? Vayeira, Chayesara, Toldos. So it'll be Wednesday of Toldos. I'll be back. Mirz Hashem. Okay, so we're on. Take a look at Perik Yud Tes, Pasuk Dal, Pasuk Hey. That's where we got to. And what do you call it? He tells them. What did I say? Perik Yud. Yeah, Perik Yud Tes. Okay, I'm way off over here. Perik Yud Tes Pasuk Hey. Okay, page 84. Page 86 actually. Okay, so the angels tell the Malachim, they tell Lot to leave. Bottom of page 86. They took him and his wife and his 2 daughters, and his son-in-laws laughed at him. So let's back up for a second. Look at Pasuk Yudalid. A remarkable idea that who says this? Possibly the Ha'im Dover. One of the classic Meforshim says this. I don't remember who it is. He says like this: Vayetze Lot vaydaber el chasanav lokachai benosav. Lot speaks to his son-in-law, who's married to his daughters. Vayomer kumu tzu'u min hamakom hazeh. He says to his son-in-laws, get up and leave. Ki mashchis Hashem eser. Hashem's going to destroy the city. Vayehi kimitzachek be'inei chasanav. He looked like a jester. They thought he was joking. How does the article translate it? Jesting. So there are different. Why did they think? I mean, that's quite a joke. Hey guys, you better leave because Hashem's going to destroy the city. That's a good one. I mean, I can think of a better joke. What's funny about that? So it's almost like you see in New York. Those weird, some weird guy with a sign. The world's coming to an end. Some nut who's what he really wants is a couple of bucks for his drugs. The world's coming to an end. That sort of thing. And everybody looks, another Meshuggah running around. Put the guy away. So Lot comes off. It looks like so. There are opinions that his son-in-laws were no good. And they didn't deserve to be saved. But why do they think he's a bit tzachek? Why do they think that it's like saying, they thought he was being ridiculous. So one of the Parsha says very sharp. He says, because Lot used, look which name of Hashem he used. It's like saying, the merciful God is destroying the city. I wouldn't call him a merciful God's destroying the city. The merciful God there's going to be a sweet destruction today. That sort of thing. Yasser Arafat, he should rest in pieces. What he calls Yasser Arafat, when they made the original peace treaty with Israel, so then shortly after they made the peace treaty, he was giving a speech in South Africa, and he was calling for a jihad on Jerusalem. So the Israelis were not happy about that because they just made a peace treaty with this guy. Rabbi signed a peace treaty with him, and the jihad means a holy war. So the Israelis said to the Americans, listen, what's going on here? So the Americans told Arafat, you have to fix that up. So he said, I meant a jihad of peace. Right? Saying a jihad of peace means we're just going to have a friendly nuke. Right? That's what a jihad of peace is. So there is no what do you call it? There's no. So one of the Israeli talk show radio personality, he was making fun of this whole idea of jihad of peace. He said 2 guys are sitting in a restaurant and a 3rd guy walks in, and one of them guy looks and goes, "Wow, is that guy ugly?" So this guy said, "Hey, that's my brother." He said, "I meant ugly in a good way." So there's no such thing as a jihad of peace. So Lot says to them, the merciful Hashem is destroying the city. Why? He should have said Elokim. Why does it say Mashchis Yud Ke Vav Ke? Should have said Elokim is destroying the city. Here's the problem. So the Meforshim explain that imagine a father who wants to feed his son. He has mercy, his son is hungry. And somebody is blocking him. He can't get to his son. And the more the guy blocks him, the angrier he gets. Is his anger coming from din or his anger is coming from mercy? Mercy on his son. This guy's stopping me from being compassionate to my son. So if he destroys the guy blocking him, that destruction is coming free because I actually want to perform an act of kindness, not an act of destruction. But this guy's stopping me. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is the name of kindness, that means he wants to shower the world with compassion. What's interfering with his compassion coming down to the world is the sinfulness of the people of Sodom. So it's when he says the merciful God is destroying Sodom, is because he is a merciful God he's having mercy on the entire world by destroying Sodom. But they didn't hear it. They hear a merciful God. This guy, it's my father-in-law after all. What father-in-law is mentally competent? He is my father-in-law. So obviously he's off his rocker, right? So they laugh at him. Okay, so the angels take Lot and they put him outside the city. And they say, you better get out of here. And look at Pasuk Tez Zayin. We have a shalshelis. Sharsheris. What is it called? Sharsheris? Sharsheris. Not shalshelis. Sharsheris. How do you read this word? They say to him, take your, what do you call it, and get out, pen tisafe be'avona ir. 5 lines from the bottom, Pasuk Tez Zayin. And then the next one is read, Vayisma ma. That's how you read it in the Torah. So there are 6 of them in the entire Torah, I think. 4 or 6. What is it, 4? 4, Vayisma ma. What does that mean? It means like, whoa, I got to get out of here? I mean, this is not going to be easy. I've got all my money and possessions and my fire here. Get out, buddy. Take your shirt and get out. This is a wealthy man. Get out. Leave everything behind you. You were wealthy with Avram Avinu. You misread it. You thought it was on your own. Now you're losing all that wealth. Had you stayed with Avram Avinu, you'd still be wealthy. And therefore you lose it all. So they take Lot because he's tarrying. They take him, his wife, his 2 daughters. Hashem had compassion on him. They put him outside the city. Now pay attention carefully. 3 lines from the bottom. They put him outside. Run for your life. Don't look back. Don't stand in the plains here. Run to the mountains where Avram Avinu is. But get out. And don't look back. So what does it mean, don't look back? What does it mean, don't look back? Lot is not allowed to look back. Why not? So there are several opinions here, several ideas here. I want to get to this one at a time. Number 1, don't look back means you have to realize, Lot, you sinned. You messed up. This was an evil, wicked place where you were living. Don't look back. Do tshuva. Tshuva means leave it all behind you. Don't look back like, oh, I wish I had some more of that. No. Get out. Detach. Total detach. Number 1. Total detach. So don't look back. Number 2, you don't deserve to look back. Okay? You can't look back. There are 3 kids. 3 kids in a house. The parents are going out for the evening and they leave the kids without a babysitter. Okay? There are 3 kids in the house. Okay? Any similarities to myself and my 2 brothers are purely non-coincidental. There are 3 kids in the house. One of them immediately goes upstairs and he starts doing his homework. The other 2 go into the living room and immediately engage in big-time wrestling, which is prohibited, severely prohibited in the living room. And while the big-time wrestling is going on, one of them grabs an object and throws it at the second one, who ducks, and it knocks over an expensive lamp and breaks it. And then the parents come home. Okay, so now what's going to happen over here? The first one who broke the lamp is going to get it, right? Now, what would happen? What should the second one do who ducked? What should he do if he's smart? If he's smart, what should the second one do? Get as far away as possible, right? You ain't no tzaddik yourself. You just happen to be lucky you weren't the one who threw it. Last time you were the one who threw it. You ducked. Now, what happens if the first one's getting it? You know, father takes the first one and he's getting it. And the second one peeks around the corner and just goes like that. Or he's peeking. If the father sees him, or one of those. Mayor, you're laughing. I don't know. We may have been touching on something that you can relate to a little better than I expected. If the father, the second one is looking at him, he's making face. Or if he's just caught looking at him and the father ceases looking, then what happens to the second one? Then he's going to get it also. Because you deserve it also. Except that he was the real criminal. What about if the third one comes down and he happens to check what's happening? This is he's the one doing his homework, and you're out of it. You have no, he has nothing to do with you. Father isn't bothered by him. There's three involved over here. There's Avram Avinu, there's Lot, and there's Sdom. Avram Avinu is the one doing the homework. Hashem even tells him what's going to happen, and Avram sees the destruction from a distance. That's fine. Avram Avinu is the tzaddik. The people of Sdom, they're the ones who get destroyed. Lot, don't look. Yeah, you don't deserve, you don't have the right. You get out of here because you're not much better than them. And therefore don't look back. Therefore Lot has to get out of here as fast as possible. And I tell you, when I say I have three brothers, and this is very close to actual life. I'm not kidding. My older brother is always doing homework. He's always up in the room doing homework. My younger brother and I, there was a lot of wrestling. Sometimes it was tackle football with a Nerf, but whatever it was, when there was trouble, thank you very much. That's what he's saying. And you don't deserve to watch it. You don't deserve to look. Now, more than that, what he's saying is when you do tshuva in life, and this applies to us, applies to you, applies to me, applies to everybody. When you do tshuva, don't look back. Don't look back. Sometimes eat that, oh, I can't believe I did that. 1 second. You did tshuva. What are you looking back for? What are you thinking? At the time, if half the people at the time didn't even know they were doing something wrong. A guy was raised not religious, and even if you were raised from, you did it wrong. Okay. Now, have you done tshuva? Do you believe that tshuva works? Do you believe that there's a God? God says tshuva wipes out the Vayeira. So what are you looking back for? What are you looking back for? And don't look back is a very important life lesson. Don't look back. But now you've changed your ways. Now you're doing the right thing. So what are you looking back? What do you gain by looking back? And number 4, don't look back as a good life policy. A lot of times people eat themselves up. Oh, if we would have made that investment. Oh, if we would have gone that way. Oh, if I would have majored in something. Oh, is that beneficial in any way, shape, or form? Are you going to gain anything by that? So what are you looking back for? What are you thinking about what could have been? You're dealing with what you got right now, but you didn't make that decision. And you didn't make that decision, so you lived. I didn't make that investment. But at the time, you didn't make the investment because you didn't think it was a good investment. I told you, I knew a guy who had invested in a startup. I told you, Yehuda, I knew a guy who invested in a startup. And heavily invested in a startup. And at a certain point, the startup wasn't doing so well, so he pulled out completely. You may have heard of this startup. It's called Amazon. So the guy's probably for 20 years, the guy's eating his heart out. What do you gain? But you didn't, so you didn't. At the time you thought it was logical not to, and you were right. How are you not a prophet? You're not a navi. So what are you looking back for? What are you going to gain by looking back? There's one other thing. Why isn't Lot allowed to look back? Because Hashem's Shechina, the divine presence, is in Sdom. Hashem's Shechina is there. The divine presence is there bringing about destruction. You don't have the merit to look at the divine presence. You don't have the merit to look at where the Shechina is. You're such a low life that you don't have that merit, so don't look back. The life lesson is that means that behind us, if you would look back, you know what you would see? You would see the divine presence. That means a lot of things that you did in your life, you've ended up here. How did you end up here? Why did you make those decisions? Why were there life circumstances that created your decisions? It's because the divine presence was HaKadosh Baruch Hu was leading you and bringing you to this point. Sometimes a person looks back and goes, oh wow, what, can you believe that? I ended up here and she ended up here, and that's why we ended up getting married. And what's the likelihood that we would have found each other, gotten married? Had I not made that decision, had she not made that decision, what's the likelihood we would have gotten married? What's the likelihood I would have gotten this job had I not taken that route on the highway instead of that route? If for some reason I decided that day to take that route, and I ended up meeting somebody who gave me a great job. And when you look back, you'll see the longer you progress in life, you'll see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been helping you out and guiding you all along. It's a remarkable thing. So he says to Lot, don't look back. So where do they go? And this is one of the most bizarre sections of the Torah. Maybe turn on the air for a few minutes. So skip down to the bottom of page 88. That's such a bizarre, I'm just tell you something, maybe you've heard it, but if you haven't heard it, it's going to just knock you through the wall. Vayal Lot mitzoar. Lot goes from Tzoar. Vayeshev bahar ushtei benos avima. Lot and his two daughters. Ki yarei l'sheves b'tzoar. He was afraid, page 90, to sit in Tzoar. Vayeshev ba'me'ora hu ushtei benos av. He and his two daughters go into the cave. Now the daughters are under the impression that there's no man, that the world's coming to an end, and this is the last male in the world. Vatomer ha-bechira el ha-tzeira, the older one says to the younger one, Avinu zaken, he's old. V'ish ein ba'aretz lovo aleinu kederech kol haaretz, there are no men around to marry us. L'cha nashke es avinu yayin v'nishke v'ima. Let's get him some, we'll give him wine, and we'll each one lay with him. U'nechaya me'avinu zor, will produce children from our father. So, vatashkena es avian yayin v'laylahu, they give him wine. Vatovo ha-bechira v'tishka v'esavir v'liyada b'shichva v'kuma. So the first one, they get him drunk, and it's a halachic status of drunkenness. That means if you're drunk, I told somebody yesterday, if you're drunk and you break somebody's glasses when you're drunk, you have to pay for it. If you commit anything you damage when you're drunk, you have to pay for it, except if you got to shichrusa shalot. If you got as drunk as Lot, it's a status where you're so drunk, you're practically unconscious. I know you guys are thinking, big deal. My roommate in college was like that all the time. But this is what you're so drunk that you're completely out of control. You have no idea where you are. So Lot doesn't even know where he is. He doesn't know what happened. After it happened, he realized it, and he's criticized for this because then he allows it to happen the second night. Vayhimi mocharas vatomer ha-bechira el ha-tzira hein shachavti emesh es avi nashkenu yain gam alayla. She says to the younger one, now your turn. So they do it the second night. And then, Pasuk Lamed Vav, Vateled ha-bechira ben vatikra shemo Moav, which sounds like May of, comes from the father. A very indiscreet name. Hu avi Moav harayom. V'hatzir gami yolda vatikra shemo ben ami, the son of my nation, who avi b'nei Ammon harayom. So you got these two daughters of Lot, they get them drunk and they produce children. The first one calls them Moab and the second one calls them Ammon, and the whole thing looks sketchy and dodgy. The Gemara says that it was what's called a mitzvah, it was an Vayeira lishma. They were doing an Vayeira for a proper motivation, because they thought that the world's going to come to an end. Okay, now, there's only one big question here, gentlemen. What's the question? Where'd they get the wine from? When you're running out of town, the city, there's going to be, the world's coming to an end. Grab the booze. We need one more drink. Get the Jack Daniels. Do away with the pain. Where'd they get the wine from? So there are two opinions. One is that they ran into a cave where they used to store wine in caves. They got lucky and ran into the right cave. The other one is that the wine got there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu planted wine, put the wine in the cave where they got there. What does that tell you? That's supposed to happen. So they go into the cave and they produce a child. They produce children. What comes from Moav? Rus. And what comes from Rus? And what comes from Dovid? Mashiach. I mean, that's pretty crude beginnings. You got the messianic line. You got Mashiach coming from, on one side, the mother's side, he comes from Moab, and on the father's side, he comes from Yehuda. Right? That's pretty, it's pretty dodgy, isn't it? Well, over here was incest. And then by Yehuda, you got Yehuda soliciting Tamar, who thinks she's a harlot. Right? And then the final, eventually the lines meet up. Where do they meet up? By Boaz and Ruth. And Boaz and Ruth, there's a whole debate whether or not he could even marry her because she's a Moabite girl. The Torah says you can't remember Moabite's not allowed into the Jewish people. There's a whole debate in Beis Din whether or not it means males or females. And Boaz convinces the entire Beis Din that he's allowed to. Boaz convinces everybody, yes, it's not limited to males. Female, it's only limited to males. Females you can marry. So he marries Ruth. And what happens the next morning? He dies. What do you think? Even the least cynical person in the world, it's like a guy sitting at a table and you're arguing if the food is kosher or treif. He says it's kosher, you say it's treif. Kosher, treif, kosher. I tell you it's kosher. Okay, it's kosher. He takes one bite and he chokes to death. Even the least cynical person in the world would probably say, well, I guess not. So Boaz marries Ruth after convincing everybody, and the next morning he's dead. He dies the next morning. And do you know when they find, and everybody says, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. And you know when they find out that it was actually okay? When do they find out it's actually okay? 3 generations later, when Dovid HaMelech is anointed by the prophet as the king. Up until that point, it was considered and even afterwards, what's his name? Doeg HaEdomi tried to insist that he's no good, that he's illegitimate. So you have the line of Mashiach, and everywhere you look at the Messianic line, the relationship looks a little bit dodgy, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. This one was incest, and this one was he thought she was a harlot, and over here she was a Moabite. So I'll tell you a concept that the Al-Sheikh HaKodesh says. Others say it also. It's a Kabbalistic concept. You can't ask me any questions. I'm just telling you what he says. He says there are certain neshamas that need to come into this world which are such high neshamas that the spiritual forces of evil do everything they can, what we call the sitra achra. They do everything they can to prevent these neshamas from developing. One of those neshamas is the neshama of Mashiach. So what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu? There's only one way to get through these barriers that they create in order to prevent Mashiach from coming about, which is to deceive them. These forces of evil can be deceived. How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu deceive them? He sends these neshamas, he sends Mashiach's neshama through very, very questionable relationships. They're camouflaged. So that the forces of evil, when they look at, well, it's incest, what could possibly come out of this? Not worth hassling over there. And what could come out of a guy soliciting a harlot? All right, technically, turned out she wasn't. What do you think is going to come out of there? And it's filtered all the way through down the line until Boaz and what do you call it? Until Boaz and Ruth. And even then, it still continues till where? Dovid and Bathsheba. Knocked off his husband so he could marry her. What could possibly come out of that? The Messianic line. So the Messianic line comes out of this. Everywhere you touch it, it looks a little bit sketchy, right? At the end of the day, there's a reason for it. This neshama needs to be hidden through until ultimately it becomes a Mashiach. That's what the Al-Shif says. Now, 1 second. What's remarkable is, if there's one question you could get an answer to right now, let's say there's one secret that no one knows the answer to. What is it? One secret we'd like. If you could ask Hashem one question right now, what would it be? What's that? One question.
To understand him better?
Yeah, what specific question would you ask?
It's a technical question. Is Moab and Ammon...
One second. The grandsons of good, quite the sons and grandsons simultaneously. That happens periodically, right? It happens periodically. Answer my question, because I've got a question. What would you ask Hashem if you could ask Hashem one question right now? That's what I would ask. When's Mashiach coming? That's the ultimate secret. What's the numerical value of wine? Yayin is 70. So the Gemara says, Nichnas Yayin, wine goes in, the sod comes out. Sod is the secret. That means when a person drinks, when people drink, all of a sudden they talk about things which you normally, oh, I didn't know you did that. Oh, really? All of a sudden there's a lot of talking when a person drinks. Nichnas, Gemara says, Nichnas Yayin, the wine goes in, the lack of discretion. The person's indiscreet when they drink wine. All of a sudden they're talking there. A lot comes out when they drink. Nichnas Yayin Yotza Sod. Here you have the cave. What went into the cave? The wine. Yotza Sod, the secret came out. Nichnas Yayin Yotza Sod. Now, I want to show you something else before I get to the real knacker here. The first daughter who took the initiative over here, she's rewarded. She's Moav. She gets Mashiach because she took the initiative. It was her idea. On the other hand, the Moabite nation is punished more than Ammon. The Jewish people later, God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you are not allowed to intimidate the Ammonite nation. You can intimidate the Moabites. Why? Because she was so indiscreet with the name. Moav, from my father. Call him Mo for short, right? Moav. For that indiscretion, the Moabite nations, the Jewish people, could intimidate them. They could flash their weapons at them. They could scare them. Ammon, she said, Ben Ami, she's more discreet. And therefore they can't torment the Ammon nation. The Moabite nation, yes. On the other hand, she took the initiative, and we've seen this before. Where else did we see this? Who took the initiative 2 Parshas ago? Last Parsha. Remember, Shem took the initiative to cover up Noach. Yefes joined him. He took the initiative, you get a bigger reward. She took the initiative, she gets Moav. She gets Mashiach. On the other hand, what the Torah is teaching you is, in one action, you can do one thing. You can be involved in one mitzvah. And one part of the mitzvah you're going to be rewarded for, another part of the mitzvah you're going to be punished for. So a person could give a lot of tzedakah, you get rewarded for it, but you can become very haughty about it, so now you get punished for the haughtiness. Right? It's not like, one blanket you're covered. That's what happened over here. Now, Rav Moshe Feinstein was the Rav in Luban in White Russia before he came to America. He was the Rav when he was 19 years old. What I'm telling you now is documented. This is if you look at the 8th volume of the Igros Moshe, in the introduction, it has Rav Moshe, there's a biographical sketch of Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Igros Moshe. In the beginning of the 8th volume, it says the following. And this is written by his sons. There was a man in Luban who developed a mysterious illness. His tongue started swelling. And it swelled and swelled and swelled. He was having trouble breathing. And eventually he asked for the Rav, for Rav Moshe to come, and he asked everybody to leave the room. And he said to Rav Moshe, I know why I'm suffering this mysterious illness. I know why this is happening to me. Last week was Parshas Vayeira. Parshas Vayeira is the story of Lot's daughter. What we're reading right now, Lot's daughters. It was Parshas Vayeira, and I said something, we read this in the Torah, and I was very cynical about Lot's daughter's behavior. Come on, look what kind of low behavior is this? These girls are behaving like that. What kind of terror? And I went to sleep, and I had a dream. And in my dream, this is documented, every word. 2 elderly women came to me in the dream, with their faces were covered, and they said to me, we are Lot's daughters. And the reason we did what we did, we named him. We did what we did and named him Moav, and we made it very, very clear that he came from my father, is because we knew that there is a potential in the world for a messianic movement which claims an immaculate conception. And we knew that as members of Avram Avinu's family, because they were the great nieces of Avram Avinu, we knew that we could easily say we became pregnant and it was an immaculate conception and everybody would have believed us. And in order to make sure that the nonsense of an immaculate conception doesn't come out, That's why we named him and made it clear that he's coming from our father. And you disparaged us. And he said to Rav Moshe Feinstein, as soon as the dream ended, his tongue started swelling, and a few moments later he turned over and he died. And Rav Moshe he said to Rav Moshe, I know that this is a punishment because I spoke bad about the daughters of Lot. That's what it says in Igros Moshe. And Rav Moshe Feinstein felt that there's enough in the story that it is believable. He didn't say it's 100% true, and he said that it rings true. The story rings true, and it may very well be believable. So Lot's daughters had the proper intent. That's called an Vayeira Lishma. And the Gemara says that an Vayeira Lishma, when you do an Vayeira with the right intent, it has the same potency as a mitzvah that's done Shalom Lishma, a mitzvah without the proper intent. So Lot's daughters over here, they name him, and this is where the Mashiach comes from. Ultimately, Mashiach comes from here. Okay, we're going to stop here, gentlemen. I got to go.